we go.
I did. Actually, it says podcast number 19.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Kevin McGovern, and today is Thursday, April 15th. Well, it would have been tax day, but, it's not, thank goodness. And today is season 2, episode 19, and we got a good show for you today. So stay tuned and have a good listen. So without further ado, turn this over to my co-host, Mike Ferry. Mike?
Have a good listen. I like that.
Have a good listen.
Good
like
tip.
That? You
good
like
tip.
that? Yeah, see that?
My name is Mike Ferry. I'm with the Farm Baseball Performance Institute. And again, in the name of redundancy, Kevin McGovern here, Perfect Motion Sports Therapy, and Ryan Gagnon, producer at large. And we mean large. So we do.
I was waiting for it.
Finger roll. That was a layup.
I'm telling you, we need to change the name of the podcast to Tons of Fun.
Yes.
I think that's more apropos for the three of us.
So, we do have a good episode today. Actually, a lot to talk about, especially in the top of the order. As many of you already know, there's been some big changes, some rule changes, both in Major League Baseball and around professional baseball at large. And one of them, Ryan, I don't know if you had them in any sort of order, but I think I'd like to start first just because it's so fresh. Happened yesterday. We had a 7-inning doubleheader. So doubleheader, no longer 2 9-inning games or 2 7-inning games. I liked it. I forgot about it watching the game. We actually did get to watch a little bit of yesterday, which is a rarity, but it was nice. And it was just interesting seeing, how they handled the pitchers. They didn't really change much in how they handle the offense, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys thought, but I mean, and this is more with one of the other rule changes, the runner on second. So in extra innings, now the new rule is you place a runner on second base with no outs. And we first started calling this like the California rule. And I think a lot of people call it that, but it's not really the California rule. Because California rule, Ryan, is different, right?
California rule, you start the inning with bases loaded and 1 out.
The 1 out's so weird. Like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean,
it's California. They're not part of the United States.
Right.
I feel like they don't really care about who wins and loses. It's about just having fun, right?
Well, plus, and the base is loaded with 1 out. So what? So you can make one pitch, get out of it with a double play.
Right.
I mean, that now scores a run. You have to change your defense. It could be done a lot better, I think. But the runner on second with no out, here, in the travel baseball world, which we participate in, that's one of the ways we've seen the extra innings work. Now, Kevin, you're a Yankee fan. I believe the Yankees have been in a couple situations already like that, correct?
I believe they've lost both. I believe it's been 2, and they've lost both games.
They've lost both games. So what was the approach with the runner on second base for the Yankees? Just station-to-station baseball, hit away?
Their defense, same shift and everything. Station to station. I do believe in one of the innings, Brett Gardner he did lay down a bunt, getting someone from second to third, but they couldn't get that guy over from third.
So it's crazy. So now yesterday in the Red Sox game, they ended up winning. Was the Sox and Twins, and it was game 1, and they had a 3-2 lead at the time. I believe it was the top of the 6th, maybe. I forget what inning it was, but leadoff double, right? Was it a double? I think it was a leadoff double. Yep. It was a leadoff double.
I think it was top 7. It was the last inning.
Was it? Okay. So then a base hit to right field, a ground ball base hit by Devers to right field. It was Xander Bogaerts on second base. They don't send him. Now, they had already left a small army on the bases. I think they had already left.
They left 9. They left 9 at that point.
Left a lot of runners on base. So ground ball. So Xander only goes to third. That's a ground ball to right field, and Xander's not slow, right? Now they hold him. And I get I understand why. I understand it's like, all right, we have no outs. We got a runner in third. Lots of way to score him. Even a double play, right, at first and third, even a double play scores the run from the back door, and they have they add an insurance run. Of course, he doesn't score because the very next batter hits a ground ball to one of the two places you cannot hit it, third base, right? So right at the third baseman, doesn't score. Next guy, strikeout, was a strikeout, right? And then a pop up, or a pop up, then a strikeout, I think. But I'm seeing this, and I think this is relevant to the rule changes because they're trying to say, I think with a runner on second, sure, base hit, gets you a run. But there's ways to manufacture that run. You have a leadoff double, right? I mean, I think we all agree as coaches, we expect to score that inning, right? So this is like a man on second, right, Kev? Nobody out. And, I know you're not like necessarily a hitting instructor, but you're a coach, a baseball coach. You coach baseball a long time, right? And adults and collegiate players, right? We expect to score if we have a guy on second base. The whole small ball thing's out the window. I'm not like this small ball guy, like a small ball, but there are times where you have to use it. It seems today, Kevin, you tell me if I'm wrong. You're either a small ball guy or you're just not. There's nothing in here. Am I
No,
right?
definitely not. I mean, just looking at the shift is the inability to not want to play small ball. Really, a conscious decision not to score runs.
Right.
Because
Right.
all you have to do just twice a week is hit the ball, flick it against the shift, and that changes everything. But these guys won't do it. The coaches won't take these guys out of their comfort zone or whatever it is. But I do believe I think getting back to my Yankees, I want to say Stanton hit the ball in the hole against the away from the shift and got a hit this week. I mean, to me, if you're still hitting 300-mile-an-hour ground balls to the right fielder, which is the second baseman, you don't want to win baseball games. I'm sorry, you don't.
Yeah.
Just twice a week. Now I'm not asking you every time. Twice a week, flick it to left field. That's all.
That's it. Make an adjustment.
That's it.
And
Twice
I've
a week.
said this for years too. I mean, like, again, we're Sox fans over here. You look at a guy like David Ortiz. In the last 5 or 6 years of his career, they played this shift on him big time. If once a game, if he just squared up and put one down the third base line, that's going to change how people play you. Then they're going to go back to playing you straight up, and then a lot of those balls that get rocketed to the second baseman who's playing in short right field, those end up becoming hits. Like, it changes the game in terms of like stats and potentially records and things like that for the long run. And I think I personally am not a fan of the shift whatsoever.
No, I think part of it too is that, they're trying to limit that guy to a single, right? So if he goes the other way, fine, he gets a hit. We're okay with that. That's not a double, triple home run. And I think, egos come into play and you're like, no, dude, I'm still going to hit that home run. Right. So, but I can tell you this, I think, a guy like Ortiz did a pretty good job of it. I remember when it started back with like Jason Giambi with the Yankees, he would oftentimes just kind of have a little push bunt up the third baseline. And what would drive me bananas is watching teams and they have a shift on a guy. Let's say it's a left-handed hitter and they're shifting him to dead pull. Then they have the pitcher work him away. Like, what?
Right.
So it's like literally like
counterintuitive.
It's there, right? I mean, They're giving that side of the field. So yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not a fan of the shift, but I think that, and so Kevin, I think that's a good point because if they're not going to do it, then really when are they do it? But here's a situation where in extra innings we have a guy on second base, and move him over, right? Productive out, ground ball to the right side, right? Just bunt him over, right? You got a lot of ways to score him from there, with less than two outs. But yeah.
Now, for me, I mean, as a baseball coach and manager, and Mike, I think you would probably agree with this. I think we've seen it a little bit so far, but if I'm in that situation, and my team's in the field, and that's what happens when you start the inning off with a man on second, nobody out. The first thing you should do is intentionally walk the next guy. You set up a double play, right?
If you're the home team. If you're the away team, you don't want to put, 2 runs in scoring position necessarily, right? So, I mean, because now you still bunt anyway, right? First and second. Now the next guy bunts. Now you got second and third with less than 2. That's my opinion.
But we're all talking about all this strategy, which is great. But guess what? No major league team does it. So they don't do it. They don't. None of these guys will hit against a shift. No one's going to bunt. I think Gardner probably bunted on his own, They're just not going to. They just do not do that. They didn't do it in the World. I mean, how many one-run games do we have in the World Series? They will not do it.
Right.
They won't even.
Well,
They won't even do it in that. They don't.
They
I mean,
definitely
what
not
is your
going to do it.
manager now? Your manager is a guy who is just keeps the peace in the dugout, right?
You know,
What does he do?
Right.
In
I'll
the
tell you,
clubhouse, which is a lot to be said for that.
He
But
manages egos. That's all he
he
does.
manages egos. There is, I
which is
mean,
an important part of the game, right?
yeah,
I
dude.
mean,
If I have
we
to
talked
watch
about
Aaron Hicks hit line drives to ground balls to the second baseman who's playing right field one more time, and he will not go the other way, I'd sit him when you're batting 133. If you're hitting 330, sure you can do whatever you want. But when you're hitting 133, you sit. But they won't do that. No one's going to make him do that.
And as long as they're pitching him away where he can go the other way, right? I mean, it's hard to ask someone to go the other way when they're working him in.
Dude,
But
choke it down and bunt it over there. Do anything. The third baseman's playing shortstop. He'll never throw him out.
I'll tell you when you don't bunt. When you don't bunt, you have a man on second is when you have, Josh Garner at the plate, right? I know he's listening, so I want to throw him a little bone because he's probably going yard. But yeah,
there you go.
But it's just an interesting thing. You're right about managing is like even at our level, it's literally about like knowing what makes each player tick. Right, knowing like who you have to push, who you got to be hard on, who you got to handle with kid gloves. Some kids you got to like play soft music and wear bright colors and be nothing but
Gotta be
positive.
fragile.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the big leagues. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, there is some sort of strategy to this. I mean, there's a reason why the good teams, the teams that win typically do something a little bit different than the other teams, right? They're very good. Like, I remember in 18 with the Red Sox, I mean, their 2-strike hitting was off the charts, right? And so they practiced that, they worked on it. And so, which is a mental type of approach, which is sort of what we want to talk about. Not sort of, it is what we want to talk about sort of for our main topic today is it's season time, right? It's now season. Everybody's pretty much in season with the exception of high school here in Massachusetts, but high school around the country is going. Our independent school leagues have started around here as well. All of the travel ball from, I think, 9U all the way up to 14 is kicked off. And it's a fun time of year, right? I mean, we put in all this work in the off season. Everybody's training hard, busting their butts to improve from last year. And at the end of the day, we do all of that for the game, for playing a game and performing in game. And it's this time of year that, we kind of, take our hands off the skills a little bit.
But also, hold on a second. We're jumping over something here that we
jumping over?
Yes. Come on.
Yeah, but hold on. But it's okay. It ties in.
Notice how I always get yelled at for skipping, right?
You just forget the order.
So, I mean, we're talking about the rule changes.
Like in about 2 minutes, you're going to ask if it's time for why would you do that? If your track
it's not time yet? What time is it at?
So for the rule changes, so what we've talked about so far are things that Major League Baseball is already doing, right? They're doing the extra inning rule. We glossed over real quickly the 7-inning doubleheaders, which honestly, I think I like it. I know players like it a lot, and I think both of those changes obviously were implemented last year for COVID issues, right? But I do think that it will, I don't know if grow the game is the right term, but I think it's going to keep the casual fan more interested for sure. And one thing, that they're experimenting with right now to kind of keep the casual fan more interested in and go the route of more offense as opposed to, more, pitching and defense is the Atlantic League is trying a few new rules this year. One of them being the 61-foot 6-inch mound distance, which for those that don't know is a full foot beyond where the mound currently sits, where the pitching rubber currently sits.
Hey, real quick piece of trivia. So the mound is 60 feet and 6 inches. Does anyone know why it's 60 feet and 6 inches?
It was measured incorrectly.
Nope.
It was written incorrectly.
That's right.
The guy read it wrong.
Oh.
When you make a zero, he made a zero sort of like haphazardly, and it looked like a 6. So yeah.
Oh, so, there you go.
Yep. So
something like that.
No, full foot. And so for years, baseball has been trying to find ways to make offense, sort of lead the way, right? Make it an offensive minded sport. I know it's controversial to say, but many believe that MLB looked the other way in the late 90s during the heart of the steroid era because it was putting fans in seats, right? Because everyone loved seeing, that was back when you had the commercial, the chicks dig the long ball with Greg Maddux and all that stuff. And the home run was what everyone came to watch and see. And
summer of '98, you're watching McGuire and Sosa. I mean, that was,
dude, it was
appointment television. You had to be watching their at bats.
Two bodybuilders taking hacks up there, and the pitching at the time, by the way, was like they were getting a foot off of each side of the plate. Wouldn't call anything above the kneecap. So, yeah, I mean, this is the most blatant, I think, idea to make that happen. Like they're just saying, like, look, we really want offense. It's almost like at the NBA going, hey, we're gonna take the hoop down from 10 feet to 9 feet because we want to see more points.
Oh, good.
Right? Or bring the 3-point line in is probably a better idea, right?
I'll push it.
Yeah, let's not get silly.
I got a bad knee. I could play in my day.
We know you could. But yeah, it's just such a just come out and say, look, we want more offense in the game, right? I mean, they've tried to do things to baseballs. In fact, I think this year, I believe that they're looking because now there's an article. So this is I know we didn't put this on the agenda, but they did change the baseball this year in Major League Baseball. They changed the stitching, right? So
they deadened the ball.
They deadened it. They said they deadened it, but they didn't. And what they did is they raised the seams slightly. They're still pretty flat compared to your standard, like high school level ball, collegiate ball, but even college balls are mostly flat now. But and they say, well, that's going to create more drag, right? But it's also going to hamper the spin on the ball for pitchers. And I don't think you're going to see home runs go down at all. I think you're going to see them. I think you're seeing going to go up again, right? And that's at the end of the day.
We've already seen a half a dozen home runs this year that are over 440 feet, right?
There you go.
Judge hit one.
2 weeks long.
Judge hit one yesterday over. I know it's their spring training complex, but hit one over the black, visual screen. Like it had to be 450 feet yesterday.
Yeah, that's an absolute missile.
Yeah. Missile.
Yep, that's a bomb. So. Look, it's I like watching offense too, but I also, and this is the thing, like Ryan said, you brought up the fact that they're trying to keep the casual fan, right? Because they know that the hardcore fan doesn't mind watch. And look I think I've said this before, like on the show, is that I love a good, quote unquote pitcher's duel, for lack of a better term. But I don't want to see a nothing game where, no hits are being, I like the games where pitchers are working out of stuff. There is a guy in scoring position, right? Maybe there's a second and third, 1-out scenario or something. And, you see that on both sides. I love those games. Those pitches mean more. Every pitch means a little bit more. Every bat means a little bit more. Those are fun to watch. Seeing how the managers play that. Like, look, we got to find a way to scrape one across the plate. What do we got to do? So I love seeing that. But at the end of the day, nobody hates offense either. I like offensive games too. I think we all do. But that's the casual fan. They want the thing out there that you hear is like, oh, baseball's boring. It's too much downtime. Yeah. Yep, there is. And then when the balls, they say it's a slow sport. It's a slow sport. It's a slow sport until the balls hit, and then it's literally the fastest sport in the world. Right? You have 3 seconds.
Cerebral. Yeah, it's a cerebral sport. Let's be honest.
Sport,
and most people don't understand how a missed call in the second inning can affect what happens in the 8th inning. They can't draw that conclusion. That's
right.
why.
They don't connect them. But also, like you think about it, really, when the ball's hit, it is the fastest sport. You have 3 seconds.
Without question.
See the ball, read it, react to it, get it, throw it to where it needs to go, and get it before the guy gets it, right? I mean, so it's
absolutely.
It's cerebral and it's fast. But yeah, no, that's a good point too, Kevin, is that's so us that are involved in the sport, understand those calls, understand, backing up a base to prevent a runner to get from second to third, right? So this happens a lot. And, this is like, I try to use these as teaching moments for kids and for even casual fans to understand like how cool something is. Like if you have a left fielder, maybe backing up, backing up a base, and he prevents a runner from going from second to third. There's less than 2 outs, right? So let's say there's whatever, 1 out at the time, right? And then the very next batter hits a deep fly ball to center field. Okay. out, and then the next batter strikes out. Does that guy never scores? And then you can go back and say, hey, look, if that guy not backed up that base, that runner would have went to third. That fly ball to center, that was just an out,
Would've
that
scored a
scores
run.
the run, right? So little things like that are really important too. And which is what we call the mental part of the game, right? And you said that's like cerebral.
Yeah. But the other thing too, with this proposed rule change, right? What they're doing is they're keeping it for the first half of the season. They're keeping it at 60 feet 6 inches, right? They're going to use that as kind of the control group, and then for the second half, they're going to move it back a foot so they can see the difference in how it alters play. So these guys, I can look it up. I don't know off the top of my head how many games they play in the Atlantic League, right? Let's call it, 80 games. So the first
I
40,
think it's more like a $120. I think they play a lot of games in the Atlantic League. Yeah, they do.
So say they're playing 120 games, right? So the first 60 will be, at what they've been playing with forever, right? That's how baseball has always been. And then the second half, all of a sudden you have to shift to move a foot back. And it might not sound like a lot, it's this much, right? But you got to think of how that's going to alter things like mechanics and approach and a whole slew of things. And Kev, I mean, you could talk too a little bit about the strain and the potential wear and tear that could put on the body and what you're doing to kind of overcompensate to throw that extra foot.
Well, first I'd have to ask, like, what brain trust decided this was going to be a good idea? Messing with the one thing in baseball that, if done wrong, causes direct injury. There's a direct link. There's no it might have been this. There's a direct link between baseball pitching, bad mechanics, bad training, and injury. And it's funny how they're using the Atlantic League, which is filled with players who have been cut from organized ball, probably because they've lost something. They're injured. I can guarantee that there's probably a small fraction of healthy shoulders and arms pitching in the Atlantic League. The majority would be people who have already been injured, already had Tommy John surgery, and now you're moving the mound back where is it going to make a difference on someone's fastball? No. It's all their other pitches. The release point of the changeup, of the curveball, of the splitter, and everything else. And it really doesn't make it doesn't really make one iota of sense. I don't understand it. You're just asking for trouble. But these guys are going to do it, and they're going to do it because this is their last hope of getting back to organized ball. You would never, ever in a million years get this passed in minor leagues, in instructional league, anywhere where Major League Baseball is. You just wouldn't get it passed. No chance. But they're using these guys as guinea pigs, and I feel bad for them. I do.
Yeah, well, I think too, sometimes it's like they're trying to, I mean, look, this is sort of like we talked about, I think, with back with the Watt signing, right? JJ Watt, which is like, I remember you asking, you're like, hey, what's all over Twitter and Instagram right now? And that's the same thing here.
Oh, yeah. The Atlantic
Is anyone
League.
talking about the Atlantic League, right? No one's talking about it without this.
Nope. I didn't even know we'll play this. I didn't even know they're going to have an Atlantic League this year. I had no idea.
Right, exactly, right? So,
right. So there you go. Yeah,
now we
right.
End of May.
And what was the other? There was another crazy rule too that would never fly in MLB. What was it about the DH rate? So you can DH, but only for the starting pitcher, right?
Yeah. So the starting pitcher will be obviously we'll have a DH. Once the starting pitcher has been removed from the game, you'll lose the DH spot basically. Relief pitchers will have to hit for themselves, or teams will have to pinch hit for them.
Yeah.
So it's trying to encourage teams to stick with their starting pitcher longer.
While they're throwing from 61 feet. Yeah.
Right.
And the game will certainly slow down with all the changes that will be made for sure.
That's right. Yeah. It's totally counterintuitive. And it would never fly in MLB because the players union would never let that fly with the DH. Not a chance. Yep. But it does, it's all interesting stuff. I think there's been years we've been talking about making changes to baseball, just baseball in general, to speed the game up and to, maybe to make a couple things more exciting. And I just this is like overkill. This is bananas.
They're also continuing with which they've done in 2019, I believe. The strike zone will be called off of TrackMan readings. So the call is basically the ball.
It's electronic umpire.
Yeah, it'll be fed into an earpiece by the home plate umpire, and he'll make the call.
Yeah, which I don't love that either.
Is this in the Atlantic League too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, let me ask, was it the
It's going
Atlantic?
to be it's going to be a two-dimensional box basically at the front of the plate, rather than a three-dimensional strike zone that they would normally use.
Gotcha.
Which I disagree with that for a lot of reasons too. I mean, the plate has a third dimension, but whatever. Those backdoor breaking balls, like what are those balls now when there should be strikes? Anyway,
they're going off of it's going to be set as a percentage of the player's height. So depending on how tall.
No, but I'm not talking about like height of the strikes. I'm talking about the depth of the right. So if you have a breaking ball coming in and it catches the backside of that plate, not the front. Like, is that going to be called? I don't know. Was it real quick, and then I want to move on to the sort of mental approach stuff. But was it the Atlantic League that I think it was 2 years ago introduced and running on dropped strikes, just strikes in general? Do you remember that?
Being able to steal first.
Basically, be able to steal first.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not a steal because it's not a wild pitch or a pass ball usually, but yeah.
Right. No, but yeah. I'll look it up, but I believe so. They had a bunch of these wacky rules that they were going to test out, right? And one was the ability to basically steal first on a dropped strike. It didn't have to be third strike. It'd be strike one. You swing and miss. If you know what's going by you, swing and miss and you run. Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that type of thing. So
yeah.
I like that they're thinking. I do like that. I like that they're trying to think of ways to to move and progress the game. But I don't love their actual ideas. But look, baseball is a real puritanical sport, right? I mean, you've got some people around this game. I mean, there are scouts out there that won't even look at. Now this is changing, but they do exist. There's scouts out there that say, the hell with TrackMan and Rapsodo, and my eyes are better than a machine and this and that. And there's a Puritan part of it. Like they still hit with wood bats. I don't think that's changing, right? That's a very purist type of approach mentality. So anyway, all awesome stuff. We could probably talk forever about that. It's fun to talk about. Do want to get into a little bit of the mental game because it is season time, as I was starting to say earlier before Ryan so unceremoniously interrupted me and brought me back to the 61-foot mounds.
Gotta be put in place every now and then.
Yeah.
That is his job.
Yeah, it is. Good job. Well done. So mental approach. So it's season time. It's game time. This is the year. This is the time of year, Kev. You're doing a lot of injury rehab stuff, so I think it's similar to you, but I do want to get your take on how it changes for you. For us, it changes in the sense that we back off the individual personal skill development a lot bit actually, and then we focus a lot on the mental approach, right? So once you know how, and this is something we remind our players often is, they think if they miss a ball, if they swing and miss, there must be something wrong with their swing. They ground out, they must be something wrong with their swing. It's not always your swing. It's often not your swing, right? The fact that you ground out might be that you hit that ball way too early. Your hands were starting to roll, right? And you're going to hit that on the ground. If you swing and miss, you just might have been tracking the ball long enough. The point is, if you look at Major League Baseball, pretty much all those guys to a man, right? 99+% of them anyway, have beautiful, mechanically sound swings, but they still strike out. They still pop up, right? So having the mechanical side of it is only part, right? I mean, it's not going to guarantee you anything. You then also have to have the mental skills to be able to perform, right? And, at a very basic idea of that is, we talk about dugout prep. So if you're you or your players in a game, you see it a lot with the kids when they're in the dugout, they're just goofing off, messing around, and they're just being kids. At a higher level, those players aren't messing around. They're paying attention to the game. If you watch a Major League Baseball game or an NCAA, Division I game, especially because those are televised, you'll see those guys up on the top of the dugout and they're watching the game the whole time. And what they're doing is they're learning, right? I mean, the game's going to give you information. It's going to teach you things, right? Like, what's this pitcher starting every batter out at? Is he starting with a fastball? Is he working away? Does he like to come inside? That sort of thing. Knowing what you have to do in certain counts, right? So a hitter's count, 2-0 is a hitter's count. You should be ecstatic when you get to 2-0 because that's the fun time, right? I mean, you get to swing hard. You never want to be late on a 2-0 pitch, right? I mean, that's something that you should be looking for a fastball. You should be ready to jump on it. And look, if that pitcher's got the wherewithal and the guts to throw a 2-0 breaking ball for a strike and beat you, hats off. Tip your cap to him, right? Conversely, when it's 0-2, you don't want to be early. You don't want to be early on that pitch because that, especially at the youth levels, that's typically when you're going to see breaking balls. You're going to see things in the dirt. They're going to try to get you to chase, but it's usually going to be off speed. And so you do got to have in your mind that it's not going to be early. If I am going to make it out here, right, if I'm going to be late on a fastball or I'm going to swing late on a fastball. But I think the common thought has always been, and you hear this a lot with Little League coaches, is, all right, you're 0-2, sit fastball, adjust to the curve. Well, you could do that at any count if that's so easy. But the reality is your mentality, your approach has to change from the count to count. And I know you guys probably know this, but for the people listening out there, the most important count in baseball and softball for that matter is the 1-1 count. The pitch on the 1-1 count. So when the count is 1-1, that next pitch will determine the batting average of the hitter. It can change by about 400 points, whether that's a ball or a strike. 400 points. That's how big 2-1 is versus 1-2, right? And so if assuming that I'm correct in that, and that is the stat, then think about how that changes you mentally. Think about how that changes your at bat. You come from a defensive, okay, I can't be early, I gotta just try to spoil the fastball, foul it off, to 2-1, where all right, I'm geared up, I'm ready to crush the ball in the gap, right? So big difference, and that's a little bit of our mental approach tips for the weekend. I want to talk a little bit more about it, but first, Kevin, so I know it's different. Your what you do is obviously a lot different than we do in terms of especially injuries. But is there anything that you do differently? Maybe the pitchers are coming to see you. Is there anything you do differently this time of year that you wouldn't do in say January?
Yeah, I kind of do probably exactly opposite of what you're trying to get your offensive guys to do. I mean, now with all of, we talked a couple shows ago about the angle of the swing,
Right.
So with that in mind, immediately I implemented my guys throwing upstairs fastballs up above, the top of the zone, having them pound the top of the zone, because that would be essentially above this uppercut type of swing, and then breaking balls and stuff wherever they fall, down,
Right.
below, wherever. But for my guys, I always you need to have command of all four corners of the strike zone at any count at any time. So like you said, 2-0, yeah, here comes a changeup because they're gearing up for a fastball. 3-2, here comes a slider, here comes something, and you've got to have the confidence to think about, essentially, sometimes you're aiming a changeup to bounce it, even though that's where your release point would be, that you've got to have that confidence and that mental approach to think that I've got to bounce this for this to be a strike and they're going to swing through it. Because you can't play if you can't hit a fastball, right? I mean, you guys know that.
Right.
No,
Yep.
There's no one on your teams who are in your program who can't hit a fastball, right? You can't play
Correct.
at any level. So it's the pitcher's job to, throw off timing, and we certainly don't see that in major leagues. I mean, these guys these starters are out of the game 4 innings, 5 innings, 1-2 pitch pitchers. And I'm doing everything I can to change that to get people back to 3-4 pitch, Greg Maddux, even Roger Clemens, Dolan Ryan, they commanded the strike zone in all 4 corners. They didn't just blow the ball by people. Okay, and that's what I am trying to teach, that kind of command, and that starts with obviously good mechanics to do that.
That's interesting to say that because a couple things that I take away from that. So the first thing is you're right, especially it's you're basically what you're saying is getting your pitchers to having them have the confidence to be able to pitch backwards, as we call it, right?
Backwards, yep.
Right. Breaking balls, off-speed pitches, and fastball counts, and vice versa. And yet, fastballs are still above 75% of the amount of the number of pitches in any game. 75% of those pitches will be fastball. In my opinion, the best pitch in baseball still is a well-placed fastball, right? And that well-placed being the key to that. But the other thing that I thought is really interesting, and for people listening, especially if you're a hitter or you have a kid who's a hitter, is knowing that the pitchers, especially the better ones, will try to do that, right? So when you're in a 2-0 count, they're smart enough to know this guy is geared up for a fastball here, and I'm going to throw something different. And the good ones that have the confidence to do so will do it. Now, that's why when we give you these tips, or we kind of share how, you know, our approach, our beliefs of these things, it's important to understand that we're speaking in general terms. And it was also why it's so important to pay attention to the game. Watch the game, because if you're up there and you find yourself in a 2-0 count, but you saw 4 of your teammates get into 2-0 counts and saw breaking balls, well, you change your approach to like, all right, I'm not sitting dead right now. I'm in my mind, don't be early, right? Even though it's like typically 0-2, we don't want to be early. Now 2-0, we don't want to be early, because that's the pitcher's tendencies, right? So that's another thing, Kevin, right? That, you know, obviously you work on your pitchers, like not having many tells or tendencies, right?
Correct.
Trying to pick those up as hitters, right? Which, again, could do a whole show on mental approach, but I know we got other stuff to get to. So what do we got? Oh, we have a question. Do I have the question, Ryan, or you have it too, right?
You have it. No, I have it too. So this is from one of our a prospective parent looking to join a program, but they're looking for a younger kid. So the question is, what is a basic thing that I can teach my young player around age 7 or 8 to improve his hitting?
All right. And so great. We chose this question because this is like, there is an easy thing, and it's not a thing. It's actually 3 things. You know, I know, you know, Kevin calls them the big 3. I call them the big 3. It's the 3 most important things to have your kid master before we start really getting into mechanical stuff. And the reason why, Kevin?
Well, I had, you know, the 3 movements I have are squat, scapular depression, and walking. And walking is kind of a loose term for essentially moving from your belly button. So I have popped a video up here, done at my practice a couple weeks ago with a very handsome redheaded guy in there in the background. But
Stunning.
you know, I just so I'm gonna run this. But basically, I had this former college player, right? So he got in, he got it. You know, I do this kind of drill or you know, little thing in front of like a live audience where I have someone get into the batter's box and just take a swing and stop at their point of contact, right? And with that, I get in and I kind of, you know, lean against them and really kind of can push them anywhere I want, because he basically made 3 big mistakes before getting into the box. The first thing he didn't do is the first thing he did was he bent his knees first, which is a no-no. And then he, you know, kind of shrugs his shoulders, also a no-no. And then he moves from his hands first. Like if I rewind this film, you could see where he started his swing from. You're going to see it even. Let me get this going here. His first move, believe it or not, you'll see it blur that he does actually start this swing from it to, and what I would think the blur part of this is from his hands and not from his core. So he's moving from a distal aspect, which is at the end of his hand, rather than a proximal, which would be at his core, which is what I talk about, the walking. And then as we fast forward this, after he has gotten into the box, squatting, relaxing his shoulders, and then moving from his belly button. I know TV ads like, you know, 20 pounder, but at a 275-pound man, when he does this, I cannot move him at all, and he looks like he's barely putting any effort in to resist me. So to answer that question is, you have to have fundamental movement, and those 3 pillars of movement, the squat, scapular depression, and walking, or moving, you know, from your belly button in the tightest circle, are things that have to occur first, and then we can build from there. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. So that's really the answer I was looking for, is like this is it. This is the foundation. Without this base, all the other things we're going to teach aren't going to matter. Okay. And so in order to like, because look, at the end of the day, and Kevin knows about like compensatory motion, and that's the biggest enemy to hitting, is when your body compensates. Your brain knows there's a ball in the tee. I have a bat in my hand. I want to hit that ball. Now, you could be telling yourself, I want to turn my hips and my core first, let my back leg come up from my back leg, turn my hips. But if you're not in position to do that, your body's not going to perform that motion, but it's going to perform the overall bigger motion, which is the swing of the bat. So something else is going to move to do that. And so, and we see this often.
I always say to that, I always say your body's going to do what you tell it to do in a good way, or it's going to do what you tell it to do in a bad way, but it's always going to do what you tell it to do.
Always going to do it. Exactly. And so, and that's really important to understand because, and that's why we use video. A lot of times we work with a kid and, even a collegiate level kid and you're saying, hey, I know you're trying to do this, but you're not getting this, or you're not getting your hips around or whatever. And they're thinking like, yes, I am. So you put them on video to show them they're not, because they may feel it, they may be thinking it, but if they're not in position to do that, right? I don't know what the world term for it is, Kevin. We call it like muscle recruitment, right? We're trying to recruit those muscles that we want to move, get them in position to actually make the movement that we want. And if they're not, if you haven't recruited the right muscles, then some other volunteer muscle is going to take over and perform that motion, right? So building this base, especially for a young athlete, is huge. If you could get a young 10-year-old player, whatever, 11, to master these so that every time that they sit, and then it becomes second nature where they just step in the box and immediately their hips come back, they sit their butt down, their scaps, they relax their scaps down and depress their scaps. And then, that's the main position right there, keeping the upper body loose. That's half the battle. It's probably more than half. So after that, to make the motion of turning your hips and not allowing your arms to go first is going to be a lot more manageable, a lot easier. Now, last thing I'll say to this question is, when you're doing these, do it off a tee. And the reason why tee is so valuable is because you're taking a reactive skill like hitting and you're making it proactive. Right. So the hitter's not reacting to the ball. They can start his or her swing whenever they want. They can feel something move. They can start and stop, whatever. That's the way you're really going to learn. Once you start having to react, well, that's where muscle memory kicks in. So you got to build this proper muscle memory first. And that's the best thing to start with.
And the other thing I would add to that, and all of us, whether we like it or not, are from another generation, go outside and play. Right? I'm sure all of us on this podcast could emulate every Red Sox or Yankee batting stance of every single starter across the board. Okay? I know I could do Reggie Jackson to Dave Winfield to Bucky Bleeping Dent to Mickey Rivers to all of them. These kids don't do that because they're in front of their, in front of their phone, they're in front of the TV, they're in front, and it's not happening in gym class. And I'm seeing kids that really don't know how to move. Their next step is to go to, organize something, and they end up being hurt because they don't even have the basic movement skills of playing wiffle ball, of going outside with your friends, throw a ball against the wall. They don't have the basic fundamental movements, and that's why I think as a generation they're lagging behind skills, and that there's more injury.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Okay. Oh, I know.
Uh-oh.
I was like, I can't believe you haven't even asked about it yet, Kevin. Guess what's next?
What's next? Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
Should I do my drum roll?
All right. So it's typically why would you do that time, but this week we have another special why you would do that. Why you would do that.
What?
All right. So what we're going to be doing today is Kevin's going to take it away here. So we showed you the video last week. Now, if you're listening to this via podcast, I suggest that you pause and watch the rest of this on YouTube because this is a visual that we kind of can't keep up with. So it's you really want to see this. And we have another production manager here. Actually, it was the hitter that you saw there in the last video. Kevin helps us out with some of the editing, the video editing, and he's been so kind as to take the last week's pitching breakdown, and isolate that to its own video. We're going to do the same for this too, so you can listen and then go back to YouTube and hopefully find the video here. But this is an update. So what Kevin showed you last week was, I think, his first visit, right, Kev? That was like his first day with you. The last.
Yeah. So the kid on the right is my essential lesson number one. Same kid on the left, I think 3 lessons after. So I did hear from some coaches from all the way from the other side of the country there in California who asked about these. So thank you for contacting me via Twitter, and I promised that I would show, some before and after. So
California.
before and after, yes, California, yeah.
California.
They're probably not listening live, but they'll see it after. So I teach everything in reverse. So I like to go from the finish, right, to get a good finish of where the move is supposed to start and where it's supposed to finish. So if we look at the pitching windup, I mean, obviously the graphic on the left looks a much more athletic position than the graphic on the right. We have, just drawing some lines. We're in a much better athletic position as far as this leg being, up straight. There's more back bend. Okay, so just in that alone, and then when we rewind here, we're going to see a couple of things. So just taking you back to what we saw last week. If I get this thing moving here, we saw, a leg that comes up, that position looking okay, but we remember the knee was kind of pointing out as it came out. It actually moved from being a hinge to kind of, fanning itself out right there. And then as he went into his drop and drive, he was very long with the stride. The arm came out of the glove immediately, and when his left foot hit the ground, he was in what I call the danger zone. We have, shrugging here. We have an arm that's way behind. We have a belly button pointing somewhere over there.
Now, can I just stop you for a second?
Yes.
Had he been Tom Cruise, you would not be worried about the danger zone, correct?
No, well, we don't. We can't worry about that until November because that film has been delayed again thanks to COVID. But nice one. Right. Kenny Loggins is not in this video either.
That's why I'm boycotting it.
So as we move here, let me try to move this center of this picture here a little bit better. So again, we still have that leg fanning just a hair, not as much, but it's still not exactly where I'd like it. He's still drifting a hair, but you'll notice the ball remains in the glove a little bit longer, and when his left foot hits the ground here, okay, we're in slightly better position. Okay, not a ton, but slightly. Okay, but really the key is unearthing that back foot, which is I'm really trying to work with him on, because we cannot anchor this back foot to the ground. I know for a lot of instruction, that is a teach. People actually teach that. They'll actually draw lines as to where the back foot should drag. But drag is friction. Friction slows the body down. I don't understand that. But if you do look, if he had a belly, if you could see an x-ray his belly button, they're kind of certainly in two different spots. And then when we finish this, if we draw in my WWE, folding table here to smash through, you'll see that this movement has much more downward. He doesn't really accelerate that arm till right about there. Whereas here, he's accelerating that ball right there. And that's the huge difference. This is in the danger zone where all the stress is on the elbow, and he just doesn't even get to that table. Whereas here, he is driving straight down. The leg is moving. You'll see the back leg moving with him, where here it is still dragging along. So in 3 lessons, I think that's certainly progress. But realistically, we want that back leg to help him make this turn, as if if he was here, we simply told him to walk, he would turn that trunk and bring that leg ahead of his right. And that's the key. And that right there, that dragging leg, that, the leg will, hang up there. I call it the Nancy Kerrigan, the figure skater pose. Right there is one of the causes to stress on the elbow. Yeah. In addition to, being long, yes, certainly being long, but we can be long, right? He could be here, but if you could see, if he turned that trunk and brought that leg forward like he does here, because he's still long here. I mean, I don't like this. He's still long. But as you can see, the trunk turn, I mean, there's his belly button already at home, more bend in his leg. Here, it's, his belly button is the turn is lagging. I mean, here he is, his belly button's still over here. You can see it. and because this is anchored to the ground, this is off the ground, and then boom, and the movement's quicker.
I like that.
That's my 2 cents.
So that's awesome, Kev. That's good stuff. And hopefully, if you're watching this, like I said, I didn't want to try to keep along this in terms of the audio because it's nearly impossible. You really do have to see this because they're not these glaring. We talk about macro mechanics versus micro mechanics, and this is this guy needs some macro stuff, but what we're talking here is also, I think, micro to the average, to the average listener. So I think that or the average parent is really what I'm trying to say.
Without question.
Subtle differences that mean a whole lot. And by the way, to reiterate, this is only his third session with Kevin. I think that's made like huge strides. Now, Kev, I know you didn't have a radar gun on him. Well, I don't know that, but I assume you didn't. And it's not all about velocity, so I don't want to, but just as an example, what do you think now, not now, but when he's finished, what type of increase in velocity do you think you would have?
Sure. Well, actually, Mike, I actually do have. So I have a
right.
technology I use in my clinic. It's not Rapsodo, but it is give him a shameless plug. I use a Diamond Kinetics baseball, and I don't use it for I don't use it for you're throwing 90. I use it for percent increase or decrease. Okay, that's what those tools should be. So at this one, he is about 81, and here he is 85.
Wow. Right.
And the difference is too. Don't forget, we're accelerating my arm here. At what? Talk about Atlantic League moving the mound back.
Right.
Here we're moving the mound forward because right here he's accelerating. His arm. So right here at probably 58 feet. Here he's probably 50 feet. And they wonder why someone like Aroldis Chapman at 101 gets hit because Aroldis Chapman, if you look at him, his arm is way back here. That 101 is coming from 60 feet as opposed to here, and that's the definition of a heavy baseball. A heavy baseball didn't gain weight on the way there. It's an optical illusion. It's coming at you from a shorter distance. The eye can't really pick it up, and that's why it appears heavy or quicker, not heavy. It's not. There's no such thing.
No, I agree. I think that's actually an interesting point because we see heavy balls versus and I think to people listening, one of the things that you can see, one of the characteristics of a heavy ball is the plate velocity is higher than most, right? So
correct.
So Red Sox fans remember Keith Folk.
Yes.
He only threw like 88, right? But his plate speed was 84. So 4 mile an hour drop
quicker.
And that's insane.
Right.
Most, a John Papelbon was like 95, 96 out of the hand, but he was like 83, 84 at the plate. So it was a significant.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not crazy to lose 10 miles an hour. And
so are they measuring that? Is there two different, this is something I don't know about, like out of hand velocity and like when you see the gun on TV, right?
They're giving out of hand only.
Out of hand. Okay.
Yep.
That's out of hand. Okay.
But that same gun.
Nobody ever throwing a ball that's 100 miles an hour across the plate.
Okay. Well, actually,
hey, I could throw a wiffle ball pretty nasty.
Nolan Ryan came close. He threw 98 plate velocity. So did Bob Feller was 96, I think, 95, 96.
So Bob Feller was 96
at the plate. At the plate.
That's that old bastard. Nice.
Because they used to build these frames over the plate because that's how they looked at it back then. In fact, in most of Nolan's career, the radar guns were aimed at the plate. They didn't know to aim it at the arm slot. I mean, I guess we didn't have scientists then. I don't know.
So, but when a scout is behind the fence, right, and he's got the gun, it's that like radar, because it's picking up movement. So it's picking up as soon as it comes out of the hand. Okay.
Yep. It'll give them both, but the good radar guns, like our radar gun, and it's 10 years old, gives you peak speed. They call it peak and plate.
Yep.
So,
really.
So so you can see the people that get out in front, and there it is.
Oh, there's our gun
behind. Can
so
you
that
show
gives
a reading?
That gives 2 readings, so
really.
that'll give out of. And now, what about the Rapsodo? What about that Rapsodo machine? Well, will that do the same thing?
I think that gives both as well. Do you have anything on the recall there? You have to press the on button.
Folks, this is good
there
stuff.
You go.
I don't even know that.
Yeah.
There's nothing on the recall.
No recall. Okay. All right. So you sometimes have to pull the trigger first, and then no.
Yeah, I did. I've been messing with it.
So anyway, but yeah, so the Rapsodo also has plate velocity. I believe I think it does. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. I don't know.
Is that
about,
tracked in Major League? Is that one of the? Is that tracked anywhere in Major League Baseball, or no? They don't. They don't want to know that.
No, it's
No.
not. And
Okay.
I always thought it was interesting because we had a kid. Okay, his name was Russ. Years ago, Ryan, I think you remember him. He was a 16-year-old kid. I had never seen this ever in my life. He had a 1 mile an hour drop. Now, it wasn't all the time, but on more than one occasion, he had a 1 to 2 mile an hour drop from hand to plate. I didn't even know how that's physically impossible, like how it's possible, scientifically impossible. But you know, he had it. It was like 84, 83, 84, 82. Excuse me. And you
That's
could
a
feel
that's
it
a cannon,
with him. It
right?
was like,
That's a cannon, right?
yeah.
Right.
You know, and you're like, geez, that had to be like 90. It's not. No, he's like
Now,
83.
probably. So let me ask you that: would that be someone who would have a high spin rate, one that would stay
Yes.
on plane?
Yes.
So that would be a fastball with a high spin rate.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
someone said to me the other day,
which is how you can now relate high spin rate to velocity.
Yeah, so someone said to me the other day, there's like, Trevor Bauer, Garrett Cole, and one other that the ball, you know how you talked about the ball drops, like, what did you say, like 8 inches or something? Theirs does not. Theirs is only like a 4 to 6 inch because of the high spin rate.
That's right. And that's why when Roger Clemens used to look like the ball was rising on his
Rising.
fastball,
Yeah.
it wasn't rising. It just wasn't dropping on the
Wasn't
ball
dropping.
you normally see. So it looks like it's going to go. Yeah.
That's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
We could do a whole show. We could do a show on that. By the way, we're going to announce this. And that'll really make sure we get our butts in gear and do it. Is we want to do a second midweek show. It's not going to be live, but we are going to do more of these. Why you would do that? So I think that's an important thing to do, just in separate segments. And we're going to try to get this out there because we have had people we've had a lot of positive feedback on the breakdowns and.
Ryan, is that in your contract? That's not my contract. Is that in your contract? The midweek show? Did you get? Because I didn't.
Check your email.
Yeah, I'm getting 100% of the pay for that one. You're not getting anything.
Oh, okay, great. Awesome.
Sorry.
By the way,
sleeping.
before we leave, and we're not leaving today without mentioning the greatest golf tournament ever ended with a first ever of an Asian American winning a major championship in the United States, the Masters. Now, the Masters has gotten a huge beatdown for them, because they just allowed their membership was very restrictive. Okay, but what the press does not ever tell you is that what they have done to correct that. And Hideki Matsuyama was at the Masters 10 years ago as the low medalist or low amateur, because the Masters invites the Asian amateur. Yep, the Masters invites, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, the Asian Pacific Amateur Champion gets an automatic invite to the Masters, in which he played there 10 years ago, was the low amateur, and obviously came back 10 years to within the day of now winning it as a professional. So I think that's pretty cool. And the Masters who is promoting that invite to get more golfers from all across the world to come to the Masters to play.
Very interesting.
And they also, so he won the Masters a week after a Japanese girl, I forget if I think she was like 12 or 13, won the annual drive, chip, and putt contest that they put on at Augusta.
Yes.
So pretty cool to kind of share that honor with his fellow country person as well.
Yes. And the ratings were through the roof, Mikey, just letting you know. I know you didn't watch, but they were.
I'll have to take your word for it. I'm sure it was stunning television, riveting.
And I'm sure we're probably going to have a whole show on what you consider
I don't watch TV when the people tell me to shh. Hey, shh.
Or I think we should be left with today exactly maybe just a couple tidbits of our conversation the other day, Mikey, and what you consider sport. So I want to kind of go through. We'll leave the fans with this. So, Mikey, is swimming a sport?
Swimming is not a sport.
Why is that?
That's because swimming is what you do to not die in the water.
Okay. Is running a sport?
Running is what you do when you're late for the bus.
Is gymnastics a sport?
No, that's just seeing who exercises the best. Who's the best exerciser?
So there you go, folks. Yep. So
we have more, but we're gonna save it.
Of course, we know that golf, according to Mike, is not a sport either.
No defense.
Because there's no defense. So Hey,
We'll wait
well,
on
next
that.
week, well, we do have an
The
announcement. Next
views
week,
expressed by Mike Frary in
Yeah.
this show do not express, are not the express
Whew.
views of the entire show. And
I'll get a few
Kevin
people to see
McGovern
the
and
light.
yeah.
myself.
There's
So,
at least a few people going, that's kind of true.
Yeah, maybe. All right, so I do know that next week's we have school vacation week here in Massachusetts, so I know that next week's show
Right.
will not be live at 11:30 because my
On
two
Thursday,
fellow
right.
fellow coaches here actually have to coach a double or triple header. So I
That's
think we'll be
correct.
doing it Thursday night, but it will be on. And next week's show is our 20th of season 2, so hopefully you tune in and hopefully you learn something today.
Yep. Awesome
All
stuff.
right, guys.